people like me. You need people like me so you can point your fucking fingers and say, that's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy.
Okay, we'll start with this. Jerell Miller, on his upcoming fight with Daniel Dubois, he says his heart is suspect. I think that's how a lot of people are feeling ahead of this fight. That Daniel Dubois may have the necessary punching power to take Jerell Miller out, though if the fight drags on, he could be in trouble. It's rare that Jerell Miller finds any kind words to describe someone in the heavyweight division. The bombastic big man isn't a fan of most fighters, including Daniel Dubois, his upcoming opponent. Generally, Miller would take the time out to rip Dubois' skills and characters. However, when recently asked to say something nice about the former regular titleist, he actually complied. He's a durable fighter for 4 or 5 rounds, said Miller during a recent interview with BoxingScene.com. He has a good right hand, he's pretty strong.
I think Daniel's best bet to win the fight is early, before the half, and Jerell's best bet to win the fight is later on, after the half.
If he can get close to Daniel, get past the jab, mind the right hand, get close to him and pressure him, Daniel Dubois has a penchant for buckling under pressure. And if the power of 2 cruiserweights in Kevin Lerena and Alexander Usyk was enough to sit him down, put him down, if the power of those 2 guys was enough to do that, what's a 300-pound man?
300 and change.
Kind of power, volume punching, and pressure fighting of Jerell Miller due to Daniel Dubois. Jerell Miller, who says Daniel's heart is suspect.
If you ask around, in spite of Jerell Miller's sketchy history and all of his anti-doping fiascos, in spite of all of that, I think most people would tell you they're very much interested in this fight and they're actually leaning towards him to win it. Daniel Dubois did not live up to the expectations set before him. He was supposed to be Queensbury's version of Anthony Joshua.
But he never became a bona fide champion like Anthony, let alone a unified champion like Anthony, having beaten as many top 10 divisional top 10 fighters as Anthony. Daniel Dubois didn't live up to who they thought he was going to be. It's a strange twist of fate that he now finds himself in front of Jerell Miller in what can only be described as a short notice fight. This is short notice for everybody on the card.
Huh? Because this wasn't the original plan. I remember hearing that the original plan was to do a show where Francis Ngannou is headlining. He would be in the main event.
Rumors about a Chisora fight, and I remember hearing that Zhilei Zhang said he was in the running for an Ngannou fight, but the Ngannou people decided to go in another direction, so I can only deduce that when that happened, the Saudis put together a different idea for a different show, and here we are. Many would say that the Ryan Garcia versus Gervonta Davis fight is arguably the biggest fight we saw this year, but I feel like that fight is small potatoes compared to this one. What the Saudis are paying all of these fighters from the United Kingdom, the United States.
It's a lot of money.
Fighters from Sweden, New Zealand, Russia, Croatia.
It's a lot of money.
And did you see the official promo ad for this thing? The promotion for the Day of Reckoning. It's laughable that the Americans are so insistent that they're still the life of the party, that this is still the mecca of boxing, and it's not a big fight unless it's happening here.
The Day of Reckoning as a card is bigger and better than anything that happened here stateside. Garcia versus Davis included, and yes.
It's bigger than Spence versus Crawford. I don't know if it's as meaningful. I wouldn't say it's as meaningful as that fight was, but in terms of scale, size, and price, it's bigger, much bigger, on a global scale.
Jerell Miller should count his lucky stars that he's fighting on this thing. For Daniel,
this is a golden opportunity for Jerell Miller to make a splash in the heavyweight division, but for Daniel, it's not so much an opportunity, but the lesser of two evils. Don't forget that Daniel's still coming off a loss to Alexander Usyk.
I imagine the Saudis are paying him well to participate.
But there are easier fights to be in if you're on the bounce. I think that a more ideal rebound fight for Daniel would have been newly crowned WBA regular champion Mahmoud Char. Jerell Miller may push him, may test him, and he's coming off a loss. For Jerell, it's a sweet deal. You get to be in a big show, make a lot of money, and you're fighting a guy that's coming off a loss with a reputation for being a quitter. But for Daniel,
it's less than ideal. He's making a lot of money, but he might lose again. And if he does, it'll be the third loss of his career.
As it pertains to another fight happening on that same show, Otto Valin on Anthony Joshua, coming in on short notice against the southpaw, it's not a good idea, and I'm gonna show him.
He's a solid fighter.
Well, I just feel like it's short notice for Joshua, Valin told Boxing Social. He's working with a new trainer already. I don't think he's in a good place, coming in on pretty short notice against the southpaw again.
Huh?
It's not a good idea, and I'm gonna show him. Definitely, I'm confident of beating Joshua, otherwise, I wouldn't take this fight, Valin added. I've been waiting for this for so long, I'm not going to let it pass by without a victory. I had a good fight with Fury, but I lost that fight, and I'm not gonna lose again. I feel like I'm so ready for this fight and get the respect that I deserve. I think he's on his way out. I think that he's been a very good fighter. He deserves respect, but I just think his time is coming to an end, and mine is just starting. Otto Valin has since rebounded off that loss to Tyson Fury. He's coming off a big win over former cruiserweight champion Murat Gassiev, who he fought abroad.
Murat Gassiev, who is a big puncher, though not a big heavyweight.
Despite what people saw from Otto Valin in the Tyson Fury fight, believe it or not, he's not normally that aggressive. He's not normally that rough and rugged, normally that come forward. Otto Valin is best described as a mover, as a jabber, as a boxer, and that's what he did with Murat Gassiev. Move around and box him up, use his height and use his length against him, whereas with Anthony, it's a bigger guy, bigger target with more ring coverage, more height, more length, more power.
What makes this fight intriguing?
Well, how is Otto gonna approach this fight? Is he gonna rise to the occasion and be aggressive with Anthony, like he was with Tyson Fury, or is he gonna be more cerebral, the way he usually is, boxing and moving and using the ring? He might have drunk the Kool-Aid on Anthony Joshua, thinking that he's chinny and he's fragile. Well, it sounds like it when he says that Anthony is on his way out, that his time is ending.
Otto is a southpaw, and he might walk into a big right hand thinking that.
Ever since the Ruiz fight, people have got it stuck in their heads that Anthony is this fragile fighter, as if Andy Ruiz is pillow-fisted, as if he's not a hard puncher. And what about the knockdown in the Klitschko fight? That right hand would have taken out most other heavyweights. Did you forget that Vladimir Klitschko has 53 knockouts?
What they've got in their heads, that Anthony's on his way out, that he's chinny, that he's mentally unstable. All the while, his contemporary, Deontay Wilder, is telling stories about how he takes psychedelic drugs to cope with the losses to Tyson Fury. But AJ's the mentally weak one.
Speaking of Tyson Fury, the guy who arguably lost to a guy who never had a professional boxing match, but it's Anthony Joshua. They're always tearing down. This is a very intriguing fight because Otto is a good boxer.
Though he's no Alexander Usyk, yes, Anthony might have lost 2 times to a southpaw named Usyk. But you ain't Usyk.
Otto's a much bigger target, and Anthony can find some respite, some kind of redemption, if he can stop the guy that Tyson Fury couldn't stop. The guy Tyson Fury couldn't knock out.
In some ways, that's the biggest payoff, the virtue of this fight. That so much for that whole theory that Anthony's gun shy. If he stops the guy, Tyson Fury couldn't stop.
I mean, I've always thought Joshua was mentally weak. This is not just started.
Another one.
You know what I mean? If you go back in my previous interviews and hear me talk about Joshua, I've always thought he had a very weak mentality.
He's not the one that turned to psychedelic drugs and hallucinogens to deal with a loss that he brought on himself. You did that, and some would call that weak.
You know, when it comes to who's the best, or if he's thinking he's the best, especially when it comes to fighting me. It's no secret. I mean, a lot of things have already came out.
Yeah, like when you admitted that you turned down $100 million to box him 2 times on DAZN so you can go chase Fury around just for him to beat your ass.
With WBN, World Boxing News, about why that fight that didn't happen when he asked for $50 million, why it didn't happen.
You literally turned down 2 times as much money. You keep talking about 50 million, you turned down 100 million.
So that make you 2 times as big a duck.
And people will really see why it didn't happen because the story is out now. You know, most time the truth come out, it's only a matter of time.
Now, I don't understand why Deontay Wilder didn't say all this stuff to Anthony Joshua's face when he was in front of him. I mean, Jerell Miller found his voice. He talked his trash right in front of Anthony. And people, in spite of his sketchy background, they respected him for it. Whereas Deontay, no, he waits until he gets away. Till he gets away from Anthony and he's in front of Brian Custer. He's in front of IFL TV to talk like this, to say all this stuff. You could have said it to his face.
This isn't even the first time he's done this. That entire year that he spent accusing Tyson Fury of cheating, he told every man, woman, and his dog.
Only so that when he's in front of Tyson Fury, he's as quiet as a church mouse wearing headphones so he doesn't have to address the boxing public or the media who would have questioned him about his accusations. This is not the first time Deontay Wilder proved that he's a double talker. I understand that the heavyweight division is more spontaneous than most other weight classes, that at heavyweight, you're always one punch away from being knocked out, and almost anybody can knock out anybody. But this, to me, is a giant red flag.
This is why I ain't got no faith in Wilder.
I don't think he has much faith in himself, as much faith as he lets on. Why are you still talking about a $50 million offer when DAZN offered you 2 times as much money, and you turned it down? You turned it down saying the Fury fight was more important, but you didn't even fight Fury right away. There's a year in between the first Fury fight and the second one.
He jumped into bed with Top Rank. He ended up fighting 2 other people, so how was that an excuse? You didn't have an immediate rematch with him, thus, you could have fought Joshua. You just chose not to.
He doesn't tell that part of the story, and he's not going to, all the while tearing down Anthony Joshua to anyone but Anthony Joshua. You should have said it to his face.
Say it with your chest. Jerell Miller did with both of his breasts.
He's got man boobs.
Big ones.
Some hullabaloo, some rag that he mentioned by name. What, World Boxing News? What is that? Is that some rag you paid to run a story for you? A smear campaign to help propagate your version of the story? You're still talking about a $50 million email from 4 years ago?
Did they mention the $100 million that you turned down? The transatlantic rematch clause? 1 fight in the UK, 1 fight in the US? Did they mention that? At World Boxing News.
And did they mention your own words that you stood to make more fighting Anthony than you stood to make with Fury, but you chose to keep chasing Fury even though you didn't fight him right away?
Because he sank to Top Rank?
I've been through this story over 1 million times over the years here on the channel, and I might have to go through it over 1 million more until they fight, because Deontay keeps trying to rewrite history.
They didn't want to fight on DAZN. They didn't want to fight on an app.
Wilder trashed DAZN, said it's a piece of crap. Do you remember that? Now, where is it that you're fighting again? Where's your fight with Parker? Who's broadcasting it?
Not Showtime. They're gonna leave the sport of boxing after this year. The same Showtime you were so loyal to.
You were too loyal to Showtime to fight Anthony on DAZN, only so that you could end up leaving Showtime for Fox, where Tyson Fury kicked your ass.
2 times.
Just to end up boxing on DAZN anyway. Against Joseph Parker, you still want people to believe that Anthony is so afraid of you. He's so scared.
Is it that he wants people to believe it, or is it that he wants to believe it? He wants to keep drinking the Kool-Aid.
His own. Makes these sound bites from Deontay even more peculiar is that the fight between them is underway. Per a tweet from Mike Kopinger, Anthony Joshua and Deontay Wilder have a deal in place for a March 9th fight in Saudi Arabia, sources tell ESPN. The former heavyweight champions compete in separate bouts later on this month, and they must win to keep the bout intact. Joshua fights Otto Valin, and Wilder faces Joseph Parker. That bit of it we already know. We already knew. That's been the plan the whole time. If they make it through their upcoming fights, the end game is the fight between them. So why is Wilder still carrying on about how scared Anthony is when Anthony's coming back to the table for that fight for the 100 millionth time? And I just feel like Wilder's projecting. What Wilder says about Anthony actually applies more to Wilder than it does to Anthony. You say he's mentally weak, but you're the one who turned to psychedelic drugs and hallucinogens to deal with your loss.
What about that communicates strength and intestinal fortitude? You're basically saying that Tyson Fury beat you so bad.
What about all the excuses that he made after the second fight going into the third, the year that he spent accusing Tyson Fury of cheating, and Kenny Bayless being a crab in the bucket referee, and Mark Breland spiking his water, and Jack Reese's count was too long, and Tyson Fury had an Acme anvil inside the gloves? I mean, what about any of that communicates strength? What I've seen from Anthony is that he's not perfect. He's not a perfect boxer. No boxer is, but he's never run from his comeuppance.
Don't forget, Wilder's costume was too heavy. He was carrying a 40-pound car battery to the ring.
I think he's projecting. I think he's projecting his own inadequacies and his own nervous onto somebody else, and he has reason to be nervous because you don't have the run of the place. Your handlers aren't in control of this situation. When they landed on Robert Helenius, that wasn't an accident. And in the build-up of that fight, that's what I told you he was going to do. He was going to fight Robert Helenius, an old sparring partner of his who he knows that has a reputation for being chinny. This is the guy that Johan Dubois left slumped over the ropes.
And you knocked out Johan Dubois. He knocked out Robert Helenius, who you chose for your comeback fight. That wasn't an accident, but in this situation,
your team, they ain't the ones in control. Maybe that's enough to rattle him a little bit. It's not because it's Joseph Parker, big bad Joseph Parker. It's because you guys ain't got the run of the place the way you used to.
May feel awkward, almost alien, the situation. And on the other side of the Parker fight, if you can get through it, is the fight that you've turned down. The fight that you've walked away from more than once. You've built an image of Anthony in your own mind that perhaps does not align with reality.
You spent 4 or 5 years, however long it's been, talking this guy down, trashing him. He's so afraid of you, so that when he comes right up to you to shake your hand, you ain't got nothing to say.
It's a giant red flag to me that you needed to get away to find your voice, to get back to singing the same tune you've been singing for years. It's a big red flag to me that you had to get away just to feel comfortable talking him down.
I don't care how much the American media talks up Deontay Wilder. I don't care what World Boxing News printed. I know what I'm looking at. I'm looking at a double talker is what I'm looking at.
Put a camera in front of Deontay Wilder, mention Anthony Joshua, he gets all theatrical, all dramatic. He really should consider a career in film, Hollywood, after his boxing career, because he has a penchant for theatricality. He is an actor.
What gave it away?
What, the rhinestones and LED lights on his costume? That didn't give it away?
Just telling you, I think he's projecting. I think he's projecting his own inadequacies and his own nerves onto someone else because this situation is foreign to him. He's used to having the run of the place, and this is very different from what he's used to.
It's not Anthony's first rodeo. This will be the third time he's fought in that region of the world, but for Wilder, it would be the first.
And he's fighting a former champion like himself. He has a lot riding on that victory if he can get it.
It's a lot of money, but you're not surrounded by sycophants and people pandering to you now.
You've got a job to do, and you better do it.